The Justice Department removes Nevada from its list of sanctuary states. What immigration enforcement now looks like here, that's this week on Nevada Week.
Support for Nevada Week is provided by Senator William H. Hernstedt.
Welcome to Nevada Week. I'm Amber Renee Dixon. When the U.S. Department of Justice included Nevada on its list of sanctuary states, Nevada Governor Joe Lombardo quickly denied that designation. In a statement, his office said in part, quote, "The state has repeatedly reached out to the Department of Justice for clarification on its designation and looks forward to their timely response." Less than 2 months later, Nevada became the first state to be taken off that list after reaching a memorandum of understanding with the DOJ to, quote, fully collaborate on immigration enforcement. So what does that look like, especially in a state with such a large share of undocumented people? For that, we bring in Isabella Aldrete, reporter at the Nevada Independent, and Attar Azibullah, executive director of the nonpartisan American Civil Liberties Union of Nevada. Thank you both for joining Nevada Week.
Thank you.
Isabella, I'd like to start with you. This MOU with the DOJ, what changes as a result of it?
Yeah, probably the most significant change we're seeing as a result of that MOU is that Republican Governor Joe Lombardo essentially agreed to try and counteract any policies from the democratically held legislature or from Democratic Attorney General Aaron Ford that the Trump administration deems to be unlawful sanctuary policies. Beyond that, it notes that Lombardo has authorized the state's National Guard to assist with ICE's administrative duties. It also commits to using FEMA funding for border control and enforcement. Washoe County and Clark County are now going to use some of their funding, those FEMA funds, for immigration enforcement.
So, Attar, the MOU that we're talking about, have you read it?
I have.
It has several examples of how the governor has already taken action to prove his argument that Nevada is not a sanctuary state. One of those is that the governor talked with Sheriff Kevin McMahill of Metro, the Las Vegas Metropolitan Police Department, in June. And after that, Metro decided to rejoin ICE's 287G program. What is that program, and why does the ACLU of Nevada believe that it's illegal?
Yeah, thanks for having us on. So 287G is a subsection of federal immigration law that effectively allows for cooperation between local law enforcement agencies and ICE. Notably, there's multiple models for this that have been deployed all across the country. And the model that LVMPD had decided to enter into effectively would have them reporting over to ICE individuals that are within their custody, but ICE would be able to request a hold for those individuals for a period of time in order for ICE to come in and pick those individuals up. Now, what's really notable about the signing of Metro's agreement is the timing by which they did it. And as I've mentioned a number of times, there is no clear definition of a sanctuary state or a sanctuary city. This is a term that gets thrown around anytime somebody seems like they're pro-immigrant or anti-profiling, anti-due process in these instances. As I'd mentioned, we have this broad term that the administration likes to throw out, and they've done this over and over.
They have provided a list of examples of what a sanctuary jurisdiction might be.
That's this administration's version of that, and that's not even a common term of art. There's no legally cognizant term of art that's universally recognized. And so when they say these are all the sanctuary policies that could end up existing, it's problematic. So Metro ends up signing this agreement, and we know, or we can at least perceive why that's the case. When you label Las Vegas a sanctuary city, which it's not, even if we were to come to a universal definition for what a sanctuary city would look like, I don't think Las Vegas would fall within that definition. But they add Las Vegas as a jurisdiction to that, and within days, Metro has signed a 287G agreement. And I recognize the challenges that this sort of designation places the sheriff in, that places Metro in, and the city of Las Vegas, right? It's a coercion tactic. anytime the administration wants to force compliance, they're going to label a municipality or a state a sanctuary jurisdiction.
But why is it illegal?
Because the legislature has not authorized Metro to enter into this type of agreement. Now, the notable part about these types of agreements is they're still subject to state law. And LVMPD is not a federal agency. They fall under the auspices of state law. They're only permitted to do what they're empowered to do by the legislature. They've never received the power to enter into a 287G agreement, especially one where the agreement actually lists them as bearing the costs instead of the federal government. And so these types of issues are problematic. If they want to be able to do this, they should go to the legislature and seek approval to be able to enter these types of agreements.
To Sheriff Kevin McMahill's defense, he emphasized to News 3 that his decision to enter into this agreement was not influenced by Las Vegas being listed as a sanctuary jurisdiction. He said, quote, "The reason I did that, quite frankly, I was seeing too many people with very heinous crimes getting out of our jail." He cited repeated offenses, including DUIs and domestic violence, as a driving factor for the policy change. So that's what's happening here in Las Vegas. Isabella, can you tell me how other jurisdictions within the state are working with immigration and customs enforcement?
Yeah, so there's many different types of 287G agreements. In Leon County, we see a model of the 287G agreement called the jail enforcement model, at least according to the DHS website. And that model is a little different than the policy that Metro has, as it lets certain police officers interrogate people in jails about their immigration status, versus, well, in Clark County, we can just hold people in detention for a bit longer so ICE can pick them up.
Okay.
And that's a bit more of a stringent model we see playing out in Leon County.
So then, Attar, will the ACLU of Nevada be pursuing a lawsuit against Lyon County for its agreement with ICE?
It depends. Unfortunately, that's the reality for most good legal answers, I guess, in this era, is it depends. And part of the challenge that we end up experiencing is that, yes, there may be these policies out there. We'll have to see someone who's actually harmed by the policy first in order for us to proceed with legal challenge, which is often the case. There's an important piece of this called standing, right? And we don't always have standing to be able to just go in ourselves as an organization and say, you know, we think this is wrong, we think this is unlawful, so we're challenging it based on that.
Well, that brings up a good point, though. With this current case with Metro, who is the person that you believe has been harmed?
Yeah, so we have actually a client in this is being severely harmed. This is an individual that we represent who was actually ordered as a part of an adjudication within Clark County District Court here to go to treatment. And after Metro had signed their 287G agreement, there ends up being a hold on this individual. So there's an ICE hold on him effectively within the Clark County Detention Center. So on one hand, they're not releasing him into treatment because of this ICE hold. On the other hand, he's not been released into ICE custody because there's a state court order that's in place. So he's been at the Clark County Detention Center for more than a month and a half, I believe now. And we were advised by a social worker that was involved in the underlying disposition to go to treatment that he's not being released into treatment court because of that ICE hold. So it actually demonstrates the complexities that are involved here. Part of the reason why we say this is a Dillon's Rule issue and why Metro and any other jurisdiction needed to go to the legislature to seek approval here was because these issues have not been fleshed out. So in an incident like this, you have somebody who could technically end up being there indefinitely. What I will say also about our case is that, you know, if we're successful here, it does have a potential statewide impact because it brings up and raises questions about other jurisdictions that have entered into a 287G agreement. Our organization's position is we're not going to leave this to the legislature or the governor to just attempt to, you know, figure out what they think here. The legislature could have made clear for all of these years that these local law enforcement agencies had the power to do this, and they didn't do so. From our vantage point, that means that this agreement's unlawful with Metro. It probably means the other ones are as well.
And for our viewers unaware of what the Dillon's Law precedent is, will you explain that?
Yeah, sure. So Dillon's Rule effectively prescribes that power that is to be held by local governments needs to be explicated or explicitly provided by the state government. There's also the concept of implied powers that occur there if the legislature is given local law enforcement the ability to act in that fashion. That's not been the case here. And in fact, Metro a few years ago actually was going to move forward with their 287G agreement when Governor Lombardo was still the sheriff. And actually, upon receiving notification from the ACLU of a potential lawsuit there, they withdrew. And so the next time that this comes up with LVMPD is just a couple months ago.
Metro, for its part, says it does not comment on pending litigation.
They're smart.
Isabella, you have done some analysis of federal immigration data. Can you tell us what you have found as it relates to Nevada?
Yeah, from our analysis during the first 6 months of the Trump administration, immigration arrests have nearly quadrupled, although a large percent of the people who have been arrested in the past 6 months do have some sort of criminal history. Nearly 70% have not been convicted of a sex crime or a violent offense, and about 16% have been convicted of some sort of traffic offense, such as a DUI. But it does, largely the data seems to kind of counteract this narrative that the Trump administration is arresting the worst of the worst.
Okay, and you have profiled someone who fits that example, and his daughter in particular is who you've been speaking with, Diana Lopez. What happened with her father?
Yeah, so Diana sent this video footage of her father, Rafael Lopez Gomez, being arrested by ICE while he was collecting his mail at what appears to be gunpoint, although the video is a bit hazy.
We do have that video, and it's from a doorbell camera.
Yes, it is. And during the days following his arrest, communication with her father became rather scarce, and ultimately it dropped off. About a week later, she found her dad hospitalized, swollen, handcuffed to the bed, and essentially unable to breathe well. He had no prior medical conditions that the family knew of, and Diana said that this raised a lot of issues about how ICE treats their detainees and transparency about detainees' whereabouts.
And she got together with a group of advocates, and they marched down Las Vegas Boulevard to the ICE building near the federal courthouse to try and deliver a petition to get her father out. ICE says Rafael Lopez Gomez, 56 years old, an illegal alien from Mexico, was arrested by ICE September 18th and held in detention at the Henderson Detention Center, Henderson, Nevada, pending his removal from the United States. An immigration judge ordered Lopez removed in 2004, and rather than taking time to depart the U.S., he was convicted instead of receiving stolen property in 2023. Lopez received care at the Henderson Hospital, Henderson, Nevada, for chest pains. He was evaluated and released. Attar, what issue does the ACLU of Nevada have with this particular case? I mean, he already had a pending order of removal, and he did commit a crime that was a misdemeanor.
In this particular instance, probably the most notable problem was you see individuals jump out of the vehicle. We don't see anybody identifying themselves on a vehicle and draw what either appears to be a firearm or taser and bringing him into custody. This is an individual that didn't do anything violent outside of his house. He wasn't running, anything else of the sort. And had that body camera footage, or sorry, the ring camera or doorbell camera footage not existed, they would have said they were the sweetest people to him, despite the fact that they pulled either a firearm or a taser on him. This is kind of a hallmark for what's going on all across the country.
But does that violate anyone's rights?
Yeah, because you actually don't have the right to stop somebody in that fashion and draw either a firearm or a taser. There's all kinds of Fourth Amendment issues that are associated with it. It'd be the equivalent of saying somebody who, just because they're undocumented, has there's no issue with them being slammed to the ground or them being shot. There's all kinds of issues still, right? The Constitution doesn't stop, and Fourth Amendment issues don't stop just because ICE is involved. And so those are issues that, in fact, may end up being litigated, including on our end during the pendency of the next couple years, because these issues are becoming more pervasive. The one thing I'll also add to that is it didn't appear that there was identification provided again, and we're seeing this all across the country. They're showing up many instances with masks on, not providing any ID even when asked, and grabbing people. How are people even supposed to know that these are ICE officers that are involved?
To people who would say that if someone is in the country illegally, they do not deserve those same rights as an American citizen, what would you say?
Yeah, well, I would say that that's not right as a matter of law, but it's also wrong as a matter of principle. This is a nation that's prided itself on providing dignity to everybody. Really valuing humanity, basic human rights, civil rights, and civil liberties. And for individuals who are saying, this is fine treatment, I'd suggest they both reconsider what their value set is, but also look at the state of the law. We've seen this as recently as this year, when we've seen student visas canceled, whether that was for people like Mahmoud Khalil or Ramaisa Ozturk, who are here on lawful student visas, and we've even seen this with green card holders. The administration going in and summarily canceling those student visas without notification of the universities. On the back end of this, people will say, oh, well, those are exceptions to the rule. We've seen this happening at scale all across the country. Even at UNLV, there were lawfully issued student visas that were canceled without notifications to the university. So this is an administration that is sort of ignoring any basic concepts of humanity. And there's a lot of people out there who may end up looking at our immigrant communities here and undocumented people and saying, well, they should have no rights because they're not here lawfully, A, B, C, and D, right? But the reality is people have come here for all kinds of reasons. And if we're supposed to be the greatest country on earth, and we're always talking about how Americans can compete with anybody, we should really hold those values strong. So for folks who are saying we need to be in a meritocracy and then have those same positions on immigration, it's intellectually dishonest.
Atar Asibula with the ACLU of Nevada and Isabella Aldrete with the Nevada Independent. Thank you so much for joining Nevada Week.
Thank you.
Look now at what voters are saying about immigration enforcement. According to recent polling from the New York Times and Siena University, when asked whether they approve or disapprove of the way President Trump has handled the issue of immigration, 35% of respondents said they strongly approved, 12% said they somewhat approved, 9% said they somewhat disapproved, and 43% said they strongly disapproved. It's an issue that helped get President Trump elected in 2024, but how important will it be in the midterms? Let's discuss that and more with Stephen Hilding, Vice President of Revolutionizing Micro-Targeted Campaigns. Stephen, welcome back to Nevada Week.
Thanks for having me, Amber.
You have more than 10 years of experience in working in Republican campaigns. This issue of immigration and the president running on a platform of deporting criminal illegal immigrants. Well, we just heard from a previous reporter in the Nevada Independent segment that that's not quite the case. There are also people being arrested by ICE who have no criminal histories. What do you think of how this has played out?
You know, Amber, the president is more popular on immigration right now than he is on the economy. There is no doubt this is what he ran on. In every seat at the Republican National Convention, there was a sign that said mass deportations now. This was a signature issue that the president ran on. According to a recent Nevada Independent article, about 15% of ICE arrests made in Nevada were non-criminals. That means 85% of these folks had criminal backgrounds or committed a crime at the time they were arrested. I think it's certainly fair to say that President Trump and ICE are starting with the criminal illegal aliens, 85% of which that have been arrested so far have been criminal illegals.
So no issue from the conservative side of we may lose votes as a result of how immigration has played out in Nevada?
I think this is what the voters voted for. I think this is what the voters voted for. I'm sure there were other policies that voters supported. No tax on tips was extremely popular here in Nevada, right? Voters are going to vote with their pocketbook as well. But I certainly think that the president doesn't lose support. This is what the voters voted for. This is what President Trump campaigned on.
And when we talk about Governor Lombardo reaching that MOU with the DOJ, how does that benefit Nevadans?
Sure. The only reason that Nevada was ever classified a sanctuary state in the first place were some of the actions of the Attorney General, who I'll note is running against Governor Lombardo right now. I think it really benefits Nevadans. I think it shows that Nevada is cooperative with the Trump administration, cooperative with ICE. The Clark County has shown some level of cooperation with ICE and with the administration as well. So I think it just shows that Nevada's cooperating. Nevada is delivering on the votes that they delivered for President Trump.
And what about the risk of losing federal funding had Governor Lombardo not gotten that name off the list?
Certainly. I mean, that would certainly be a concern. And there are a lot of states and cities that you're seeing that are losing federal funding because they don't want to respond positively to the administration's actions.
And right now there is a bipartisan immigration bill in Congress called the Dignity Act. Its original co-sponsors include 11 Republicans and 11 Democrats. Representative Maria Elvira Salazar is a Florida Republican, and she is leading this bipartisan group. She said that after signing the big, beautiful bill, the one issue that still looms over the economy is immigration. Let's listen to more from her now.
We in Congress, through the BBB, we allocated $150 billion to secure the southern border. But the truth is that we still have over 10 million people or more working in construction, hospitality, agricultural, dairies, fisheries, slaughterhouses, who are undocumented but who are not criminals. Human beings invisible to the average American, but without them, we will not have food by this Friday. Yes, they broke the law, but someone gave them a job because they needed those workers who are still needed today.
And Representative Susie Lee of Nevada is one of those co-sponsors that I mentioned. What do you think about this bill and its ability to get through Congress?
The Dignity Act is an interesting one. You have Congresswoman Salazar, who introduced it, who's in one of the largest Hispanic districts in the United States, in the Miami area. You've got other moderates from the Republican side, like Congressman Lawler, who's in the most D-plus congressional district in the country, held by a Republican. You're seeing a group of moderates from both parties look at this from an economic perspective, right? The argument that's being made is that these folks did not simply commit a crime by being in the country illegally and having an undocumented status or overstaying a visa or something like that, but talking about the importance of having these folks in our industries, right, in our farms, in our factories, in our fisheries, and I think there's certainly an argument to be made there that folks based on merit might have some merit to stay in the country despite their undocumented status.
When you say that it is more of the middle ground kind of Republicans and Democrats, is that going to put this at danger of passing? You know,
this bill isn't all that towards the moderate. I think you might see some opposition from some of the far left of the Democratic Party, right? Because this bill still pushes heavily for finishing President Trump's border wall, pushes for more resources to the southern border, border enforcement, border security, things that some of the further left members of the Democratic Party have been pushing against.
And Representative Salazar has talked about that, as well as this is not amnesty. This would be for temporary legal status after you have been in the U.S. for 5 years. So anyone who got here before 2021 could get that if you had no criminal record, you had been working. Why do you think this may not pass on the Republican side? What would the Republican opposition be?
Sure, I think there are some Republicans, especially on the hardline side, the more conservative side, that don't see that this is far enough, right? That this is not fully acting on what President Trump had campaigned on and pushed for, right? Pushing for more deportations of illegal aliens, right? I think that you might see some opposition from the conservative base on that.
Okay, what is the level of concern that these deportations will end up impacting the economy?
I think there is certainly a concern, right? This is the main concern voiced by Congresswoman Salazar and her colleagues that are pushing this on both sides of the aisle. I think it's a fair concern, right? There are a lot of industries that have a lot of undocumented immigrants, and I think it's fair to say that reform needs to be pushed in those industries, right? And I think that's part of what this bill does. It's a temporary thing as we start to reform it, right? There's no reason that distinctly American industries are filled with undocumented immigrants.
Do you have any idea what President Trump may be thinking about what kind of impact these deportations are having on the economy? Sure.
I mean, I think we've been seeing signs of economic improvement under President Trump, right? We've been seeing that more Americans are taking jobs. Workforce participation is up. I think there's certainly a concern. I'm sure the president is addressing that concern, and I'm sure he's going to be talking with congressional leaders. Surely some of the ones who are pushing this bill. Congresswoman Salazar has been a supporter of President Trump, so I'm sure he'll be speaking with some of his congressional allies on this bill and the potential economic impact.
What do you think could keep him from signing this bill should it reach his desk?
Sure. I mean, we'll see what the final version of a bill that looks like this would get to his desk. The way it is now, I mean, it certainly seems like incremental change in the right direction, right? Pushing for more border security. I think the president would be very happy if Congress would pass more funding for the border wall, more funding for border security, more funding for ICE, more funding for DHS. So I think the president would be very supportive of impacts like that. It depends what changes with the bill, with the certainly not amnesty, as Congresswoman Salazar has said, but more of the kind of temporary. What does this really look like?
What will help President Trump in the midterms? What can he do?
I think voters want to see President Trump continue to gain on what President Trump campaigned on in 2024, right? He campaigned on mass deportations now, right? On the immigration issue, right? He campaigned on the economy, right? He is moving all of these issues down the field. He's continuing to to work on these issues and fight both with his base. I mean, he's delivered peace in the Middle East, right? Literally yesterday, delivered peace in the Middle East and was in Egypt and Israel, freeing our hostages overseas. I mean, there's been a lot. I think there are 13 congressional seats in the country right now that are held by Democrats that President Trump won. I think that's going to be the #1 priority of national Republicans. The Senate map looks good for the midterms for Republicans. There's not much of an opportunity for the Republicans to lose the Senate. The question is the House, and those 13 seats are going to be what President Trump and the team focuses on for the midterms.
And what is the conservative perspective on the allegation that these immigration enforcement policies at the national level have impacted the tourism industry here in Las Vegas, preventing people from coming here out of fear of possibly being deported?
Sure. I think that fear is kind of a little bit played up, to be honest with you, Amber, right? If you look at like actual airline statistics, everyone who's coming from other places is coming obviously through the airport here in Nevada for the most part. You look at all the airlines, sure, the Canadian Airlines, Air Canada, Porter, their numbers are down, right? Their numbers down 20 to 30%. But if you look, Aer Lingus has just restored their flight from Dublin direct to Las Vegas. British Airways has just restored their flight from London to Las Vegas, right? You're seeing almost every other international carrier's flight numbers up, right? There's more interest in coming to Las Vegas. You're seeing a little downtick in the Canadian carriers. I don't think that there's much of an argument there that the immigration policy is affecting that.
Stephen Hilden, thank you so much for joining Nevada Week.
Thank you for having me.
And before we say goodbye, a big congratulations to the Las Vegas Aces, who swept the Phoenix Mercury and won their 3rd WNBA championship in 4 seasons. The amazing Asia Wilson had 31 points and 9 rebounds in the Aces' 97-86 Game 4 victory, earning the title of Finals MVP for the 2nd time in her career. The Aces are now one of just 4 WNBA teams to win 3 titles, and they did it despite a tough start to the season and 2 grueling playoff series. For more information on any of the resources discussed in this show, go to vegaspbs.org, and I'll see you next week on Nevada Week.